The reason why your paintings look flat is because you're not adding enough highlights. So let me go into proper detail here in a second. I just want to say I'm making this video because this is by far the most common and prevalent mistakes that I see when I'm reviewing my students' work. So I just wanted to make a quick video. Well, a quick video is going to be probably like 20-30 minutes or something. So I just want to make a video about it because it's way easy. Like the solution to this problem is huge. It's insanely easy, and it just takes a bit of a mindset switch like this. So here I have a face, an ugly face that I painted from imagination. And again, the most common mistake that I see, and something I was very guilty of, is that everything that I painted ended up looking very flat. Like it wasn't looking realistic or 3D. It was just looking kind of ugly, and it didn't have like a lot of volume. If that makes sense. So how do we fix this? We gotta just add volume. We gotta treat the face. Let me just put this face to the side. Okay. We gotta treat this face just like a sphere. So honestly, I kind of hate painting spheres, or well, I don't hate painting spheres, but I hate telling people to paint spheres because it is a bit of a boring exercise. I know it's not as exciting as, I don't know, painting a face and painting some fancy looking art, or yeah, like a portrait like this. But it is hugely important because painting a sphere is, again, not for the sake of painting the sphere, but more for the sake of the mindset that I want you to have. Because the way that you paint a sphere is the same way that you paint a face in terms of adding depth, in terms of adding volume. So I'm just going to kind of try to break down the way that I do it. So the early stage, let's say the early stage of a painting like this, of a portrait, will be just like a sphere. Will be just like this. It will start off like as a flat color. So let's say I'm painting a nose. I'm starting to paint the nose. The nose will start something like this. Obviously, like it will probably be more shaped like an actual nose. Probably I will start with like this little thing, the fleshy part of the nose. But it's going to start off as a sphere in the sense that it's going to start with as a flat color. Because like here, I'm asking you the question: how do you paint an actual sphere? How do you start? You gotta be mindful of this kind of questions when you're painting your face. So what you want to do with the sphere is to go from dark to light, and you also want to go from big to small. I'm just not gonna go over that too much because I don't want to kind of make this go so much over the place. So you're gonna go from dark to light here. So we're gonna start with the darkest value that we can. And from this point, we're just gonna move, move to the brightest values and highlights. But we're gonna do that very subtly. So, I'm just gonna do a lot of. I'm just gonna use the opacity of the brush, and I'm just gonna do a lot of color picking. So, you want to start something like this. So when I'm on the early stage, let's say of painting the nose, this is what I'm. This is basically what I'm taking care of. This like stages. So here we no longer have a flat sphere. We now have a bit of depth. The only thing that we're lacking right now is blending. So once you have like three values like this, you can say you have depth. You can say you have values. Basically, you have these transitions that suggest that the light is coming from this direction. So you technically have depth. You have at least more depth than before. And we can say we're in like a similar stage. I actually try to make this kind of flat on purpose because I wanted to like give like an obvious visual example, but I guess it doesn't look flat enough. It looks a little flat. Let me try to. I'm gonna try to add a bit of depth, the way you'll see here, right? So let's say once you have this these levels of depth, what you want to do next is keep adding more highlights. You want to keep adding more and more highlights. And this is something personal, but I like to exaggerate the highlights. I really like to exaggerate the highlights. I'm going to show you how I do it in a second. So I'm just going to keep adding highlights like this. You can even go, like sometimes depending on what I'm painting, I can even go to like use pure whites basically, because I just know I just like making things look super shiny and stuff. So we can start adding some blending now that we have our like base colors. Well, let me do it like this first. So the way you're gonna render the sphere, this is a very ugly sphere, by the way. I'm so sorry for my terrible demonstration here, but yeah. The way you want to render this phase and start adding blending is the exact same way that you're going to do with each individual form. Because when I'm rendering a phase, whether I'm doing it from imagination or from like a study, what I will do on the rendering stage when I want to add the blending and make things look more finished is that I'm going to focus on individual areas. I'm just going to focus on individual areas like the cheekbones, or the nose, or the bridge of the nose, like the upper lid of the eyes, this other area, like again the cheekbones, the forehead, this other area. So basically the planes, but a very kind of, let's say, simplified version of the plane. So I'm not focusing on those tiniest little planes of the face. A lot of times it kind of depends. I like simplifying things a lot, so you don't really have to do that. It's just being mindful of what areas you should, just add volume like this, like I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do is kind of just start adding in between values here. So you see how we have these lines that suggest transition. We're going to make them even more diffuse. I'm not gonna touch this highlight yet, but yeah, you can just keep going, and very important, we want our brush strokes to basically just wrap around the sphere, and the form that we're painting. Again, this is not about spheres. Just forget about spheres themselves. It's more about the form of the 3D object that just happens to look like a sphere, like the nose. The nose is very spherical, so we are going to do or render the nose in a very similar fashion. So yeah, here we have our rendered sphere. Again, rendering a sphere is not that hard. Honestly, rendering itself is not hard at all. It's not complicated. I feel like the concept of rendering in, I don't know, painting realistic has been overhyped just because you don't know how to do it. But it doesn't take like decades of practice or anything. It just takes knowing how to properly render. If you know, like, knowing how to do hyperrealism is not complicated at all. Maybe from imagination doing hyperrealism, a hyper-realistic face from imagination, it probably is, unless you kind of know the planes of the face. So just keep that in mind. Now what I like kind of doing is blending this highlight here like this. Let me use this other brush real quick. So what I'm gonna do with the face is basically the same thing I just did to the sphere right here. God, this looks terrible. I'm using the round brush for this, by the way, and I'm also using like a blending brush. So, sometimes I just want to have a very subtle, very subtle edges. And I'm gonna use a brush like this. just allow me to make things super smooth. Kind of this brush is a little wonky, but a little bit hard to use. It's just very sloppy in general, which is fine for some purpose. If I want to make a very painterly painting, I will use this for a more traditional rendering, right? So now there are two ways that you can add depth and volume, and stop making things, prevent things from looking flat. So also a lot of, again, very common mistake that I see when people start their paintings. Please, this is actually very important. So try not to make this mistake, because you're gonna kind of struggle here. You wanna go always from dark to light. I can't stress this enough. This is really important. So what this means is basically that you want your flat color, your base color, to start like this, very dark. You want it to be as dark as possible, as dark as the darkest value or shadow. And then you want to go move to the highlights. You want that, so you don't want to make it brighter. You don't want your flat color to be brighter and then you add the shadows later. Does that make sense? You don't want to do it the other way around, where, oh, okay, I just made it bright, now I'm gonna add the shadows like this. Because it's gonna be more annoying. We're not doing watercolors here. There's no need to go from bright to dark. That doesn't make sense here in like the digital medium or in oil painting. It's just more, it's easier and it's more effective. It's gonna look better if we do it this way. But sometimes you will have to kind of add like a shadow. So let's say if you're painting like a very soft contrast, low contrast painting, or a portrait. Let's say, so sometimes you pick a reference that's very low contrast and like the face doesn't have any clear planes. Sort of. I wish I can pull off an example, but I don't have any. But anyways, what you kind of want to do is do a little bit of like a contour here, and then you want to just, here you're going from dark to light sometimes, and you can see how we instantly just added a little bit of depth, so it was no longer flat. We can absolutely do this when we absolutely have no other choice, but otherwise, like in in the other scenarios, I would just tell you to do it from, again, dark to light. Now let's go over this ugly face. So basically what I can do here is just keep adding more and more highlights. Just like a sphere, just the same way that I was doing the sphere. This is what I'm gonna be kind of doing here. So here, for example, I'm doing this like the contour thing because it was looking a little bit too bright on the edges. Like the base color was looking a little bit too bright, so I'm changing that. Okay. So yeah, I really like exaggerating highlights in general because it just looks very stylish. I just love it. And that is the key to kind of save a bad painting if you feel like, I don't know, you're doing a low contrast, because painting like a portrait in very low contrast, like natural light or something, it's actually quite hard. Or painting like Asian girls, like Japanese girls, that is complicated. Why? It is particularly complicated because their faces are very low contrast because of all the fucking makeup they use. So you can either learn to paint low contrast portraits, or you can just cheat your way through it and just add a bunch of highlights like this. Let me actually use the other brush. So I have two brushes for blending. I have the soft blend and I have the oil smooth blend, and both are good for like different kind of purpose. So this one is way more soft, way more subtle. If I want like very soft blending here. So what I would do with the highlights is that I would make like a dot here, like a little dot, and then I would blend like one side. But here's the thing: you have to work yourself work your way to the brightest highlight. Because if you, let's say I want to do the same thing with the cheekbones, I can't just go right into the like brightest highlight because it's not going to make sense. So I have to build it up. I have to just keep adding transitions, value transitions. So I can then do the same thing probably even here and like this other area of the nose. You know, it really depends on how exaggerated you want it. Like there will be, though this is important that you know it. There are some. No, it actually looks kind of terrible. Gotta use like a brighter, sorry, a darker value. Not all areas of the face will reflect light in a similar way, or I mean, the same way. Sorry. So the nose is one of the most reflective, probably after the eyes. So if you look at my nose, for example, you have like a more of a stronger highlight than, or like a more of a concentrated highlight than if you say the chin, for example. So the chin is usually going to be more spread out. You don't really want to have like the same type of highlight, you know, because it's just not the same. Or the same with the forehead. You want it to be a little bit more spread out. But when you have areas like this part of the eye, for example, you can actually go like, I like going very bright on that one. And you want your transitions to be subtle, though. You want to try to be as subtle as you can. Mm, that looks kind of alright. God, this nose doesn't make any freaking sense. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, let's just pretend this is a. Okay. Okay, good. Let's pretend this nose looks alright. Okay, just for the video. You can get away with a bit of anatomical gibberish if you kind of fake it with the highlights, you know. If you do it in like a confident way. Oh yeah, I just know kind of where to add volume again. If I break down the nose in these two shapes. So here I just added the same. Again, it's not the same absolute level of brightness. Yeah, I don't have a concentrated spot of highlights here. So I will do the same with the cheekbone. Oops. So I'm probably gonna go a little darker here. Um, Probably. Oh, damn it. Oh, Christ. Good lord. So just for the record, you don't need a fancy brush to blend either. I'm just doing this because it's just faster. But as you saw me doing, I just did the whole thing only with the round brush, basically, which, you know, is the main brush that I use for painting. So I don't really need this brush. Well, I do need it, but if you take it away from me, it's not like the end of the world. It's just gonna make things a tiny bit slower, but nothing too serious. So, okay, now from this point, I can just, okay, I'm just gonna keep trying to add the highlights. And again, it's, if you look at my cheek area, it's going to be very spread out as well. So it's not gonna be like necessarily like this. Sometimes I do it like this just for fun. Like it's not gonna be like the nose, for example, that is more, it has more like the cylindrical shape. But sometimes I will just bend the rules, you know, just for, because it's more fun. Okay. So now we do it. God, we're already 20 minutes in. Nobody's gonna watch this video. Okay, now I'm just gonna add a bunch of very bright highlights. Just again, this is usually not going to happen in nature unless you're sweating or oiled up. But you know, it's just fun to make things super like glossy and shiny. So yeah. And again, I can go as far as using full pure whites here. It's probably not the best demonstration, but I mean, it does look better, or it does look less flat. If you kind of compare both sides. So this would be, it doesn't necessarily look flat, especially because of this kind of plane here, this like the cheekbone plane. This is the only thing that's preventing this from looking flat, but if I take this away, it's gonna look a lot flatter. Um, but still, we can, if it's just to make it more rendered, right? So if you want to make it more rendered, you want, oh, hyperrealism, whatever. You just want to add more highlights and just keep making the blending smoother, basically. That's what you want. So now here, oops, probably not. Again, you want to just keep making transitions so it's not, it doesn't look as exaggerated. Like, oh yeah, I just have this. I'm just gonna add like right away. So here, for example, again, the neck area, of course I left it flat on purpose, but it looks flat because it's just a base color, so it's going to look kind of flat in the beginning. And of course, you want to follow the form, just like the sphere. You want to, your brush strokes to kind of follow the form of the object. You don't want to just randomly, you know, just yeah, that would make too much sense. Like, you see how it's kind of here? The way I'm doing it is just following here, like the form. This gives the form of the cheeks. And then I can just add the right highlight here. You don't have to use pure white all the time. Sometimes it's going to look very weird because of the value range if you try doing that. But I like doing that. um, uh, okay, now we're almost there. Okay. And now we just want to do the same thing with the other areas. You see how I'm going just okay, one area at a time kind of thing. So you know, next, now that I'm done with these two areas, for example, I would go with, say, the chin. I'll probably go with the chin. Okay. So again, just the same thing. I would make it just progressively brighter until I can just add the brightest highlight. However, again, here I'm not going to do. I'm going. The highlight is going to be more spread out. Let me get a nice color for this one. Great. This looks great. This one. Right. Okay. So yeah, right now it looks kind of flat. We can just add a bit of highlight like this. Same thing around this area probably. This areas also reflect a lot of light, especially for women, because of the makeup they use. This area, I like painting this extra bright in general. Hmm. Yeah, by the way, if you like this type of videos, if you like this type of long content format, videos, content, classes, whatever you want to call it, I have a community. It's down on the first link in the description, and it is a fantastic community where I do this all the time, basically. So I do this with your art, and right now I'm doing like a dynamic, like a call dynamic, where I just hop onto calls with people and we just paint together, and I kind of give people feedback on their art. But I do it in this way that it's just fun. You know, it's like, okay, we're just gonna draw together. I'm just gonna give you feedback like this, like the same way, just talking random stuff, and it's in this long format that it's not like short, like hyper edited format videos, whatever. So if you are into that type of stuff, you can join us in the top link in the description. I really suggest you join, you also have a bunch of video classes in there, and yeah, you basically get my help. So if you just want to learn more from me, there you can join. So I guess this is basically done at this point. I mean, you can render this as much as you want. Basically, a phase is never going to be rendered enough. It's never going to be finished. So you can go really crazy with it. So as I said, I do this. Oops, computer's lagging. I do this with like the individual, with every like individual part, like area. This also works for, again, obviously not only for humans, but for everything that has 3D form, three-dimensional form, it'll work. So yeah, once you're done with the chin, you just go and paint the forehead and so on. Okay, my computer is having a stroke right now. Okay, great. You know what? Sometimes I like leaving some areas kind of simplified. I don't like having too much rendering in some areas. So I just like having a lot of rendering on areas that I like, or that are going to be like the main focal point of attention. Um, I like this goofy little like cheekbones. Looks like a doll or something. Looks so ridiculous. But yeah, I think we'd improved it a little bit. I wish I had saved like the flat version so we can compare it. Yeah, we can do the same thing with with the neck and with the smaller area. So basically, what you want to do, the whole concept of rendering is going from the biggest areas, and then once you say, okay, now I'm done with the big areas of the face. Now you're gonna zoom in and you're gonna focus on the smaller areas in between those in between the big ones, like inside of the big areas. You want to do the same thing, just keep adding volume until basically are painting on the like the atoms on the skin, on the yeah. All right, so that's basically it. If you're interested in the community and you want this personalized classes for you and your art, you can join. It's in the top link in the description. Goodbye.